And there I began to study the Suzuki violin method. And that is a method of music learning, which is different from most traditional types of music learning. And during this process, a student will learn how to play music by ear. We call it learning music by ear, and not sight reading. So in today's talk, I want to explain a little bit more about the Suzuki method, how it works, and then I want to share 3 benefits that I've gained in my own personal experience using this method, using various musical demonstrations. So, without further ado, let's get the PowerPoint going here. All right. So, the Suzuki violin method was founded by a man named Shinichi Suzuki, hence the name, and he was born in Nagoya, Japan in 1898. He believed that music could be learned in the same way a person learns their mother tongue. So, what I mean by that is, when we are children, we grow up hearing our language, and we don't have to go to school to be taught how to speak. We simply hear as the language is being spoken by everyone around us. We hear it from our parents, our friends, on the TV, and even on the radio. So it is based on this idea that Suzuki developed his theory of music learning, which is learning music by ear. So, how does it work? Well, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that process now. The first thing a student has to learn in any kind of music learning is how to hold the instrument. So I'm actually going to ask someone out there today to come up and get a mini violin lesson. Does anyone want to learn how to hold the violin today? Just raise your hand. I will only need you for about 2 or 3 minutes. Anyone? Anybody? Hi there. Come on over here. What's your name? A little bit louder so everyone can hear you. Okay, In Chansu. Did I say that right? In Chansu. I shouldn't even try. Okay. But forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. Thank you for coming and volunteering today. Have you ever held a violin before? Okay. Well, it's actually a little bit more difficult than it looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to show you and everyone here how to hold the bow, and then we'll talk about the violin and put the 2 together. Okay? So don't be shy. Come up here, up from under that stand. We can see you. Okay. And all of you, if you would like to go along with us, just follow along. Okay? So, as I mentioned before, I started taking lessons when I was only 4 years old. So my teacher spoke in very easy terms for me to understand. But I still use it on adults and young children and medium-aged children. So forgive the childishness, but just go along with it. So to hold the violin bow, the first thing you need to do is make a bunny rabbit. Okay, let's all do it together. Can you make this shape with your hand? So you just take your thumb and your middle fingers and you close them like that. That's the mouth. And on the ends, these are the ears. Okay? So that is how you make a bow hold. Well, that's the shape of your hand. Okay? Let's see it. Yeah, very good. Okay, so now you know how to make the shape. Now we've got our bow here, which we're going to pretend is a carrot today. Okay, because rabbits like carrots. Alright, so we have our rabbit bow hold and our carrot. All we need to do is simply take the rabbit, give it a good bite, just like that, and then you're going to lay down the rabbit ears like so, and you have a bow hold. Okay, here's what it looks like. Okay, now let me see your rabbit ears. Okay, go ahead and give the carrot a big bite. Nice. Very good. Now your thumb's going to come under just a little bit. There you go. And the pinky's on top. Spread Open it nice and wide. Good. Do you think you can hold it without dropping it? Wow, very good. Show everybody your bow hold. This is a beautiful bow hold. Wow, I think you have natural violin hands. Okay, very good. Now, we're going to take that from you. Just a moment. Now, let's talk about the violin for a second. Okay, so when you pick up a violin, you're going to grab it around what we call the neck, just like so. And I've got a hand underneath to support, okay? So you grab the violin with your left hand on the neck, and you're going to hold it out in front of you, like this. Your feet should be about shoulder width apart. You're going to tip the violin up, and then simply place it on the shoulder, bring the chin down, like that. And that's all there is to holding the violin, okay? Now I'm going to let you try. So your left hand, okay, go ahead and give it a grab around the neck. Good. And put your other hand underneath. Oh, actually, no. Okay. Then we're going to tip it up, just like so. Okay, and underneath the shoulder. Very nice. Okay, and the last thing you're going to do is slide your hand down. Wow, that looks really good. Now, to put the two together. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Whoa, do you remember your rabbit ears? Let's see them. Okay, give the carrot a big bite. Very nice, like a pro. All right, that's just, there you go, just like that. And now, you're going to bring the bow over and put it on the highway, right in between the fingerboard and the bridge. And when you play, you want to keep the bow in line, like this, like hovering between the lines, okay? Okay, you want to try it? Let's see what you can do. Not bad. Go ahead, a little harder than it looks. Yeah, though. All right. Wow, that's learner. So that's how you hold the violin. All right. After learning how to hold the instrument, the next thing the teacher will do in the early lessons is, of course, the student needs to know the different parts about the violin, but the most important part is the strings, because that's what produces the sound. So the violin has 4 strings, and they are from highest to lowest: E, A, B, and G. Only 4. Okay? So a student learns what the strings sound like, how to hold the violin, and while they're practicing all of that, for me when I was 4, I probably practiced holding my violin and my bow for, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks or so, just studying that. And then during this time, this child in a Suzuki method will also be given a recording to listen to. And in the Suzuki method, there are several books. Okay. Here is volume 2 of the Suzuki method. And this is actually for the parents to use, or the teacher. And this has music, mostly classical music, that is starting at like an easier level and going up through the book, teaching different skills on the violin. So a student, the very first piece in volume 1, this is volume 2, for everybody to learn is a tune that will be familiar to probably just about anyone. So let's test it. I'm going to play this, just a short bit of this first song that Suzuki students learn. And when you recognize the tune, put your hand up, okay? Let's just try this out here. Okay, the name of the song. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, traditionally, but maybe in other countries it has a different title. But it's a very popular traditional tune. So it sort of speeds up and makes that early learning process easier. So a child has well, back when I was learning it was a cassette, but nowadays a CD to listen to, and the teacher or the parents will play the recording for the child throughout the week. I would spend hours coloring and just listening to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So after some time, the child has really internalized this music. And they know it well enough to sing it. La, 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 la. And once you can do that, and you know kind of the high notes and the low notes of the violin, it's time to experiment by finding the notes. All right, so maybe my first time playing violin and I know how to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Okay, I'm going to try and find that first note. Okay. Okay, so a child can sing to themselves and kind of find the notes. And if they're really young, perhaps the parent will be there singing along, trying to help. So parents are very involved with young children learning this method. So, all right, the child knows how to hold the instrument. They're listening to recordings. They're starting to find the notes. And they continue this process until they can play an entire song. Never once using music on the page, just listening and playing on the instrument. Of course, this will require, to make any progress, it will require daily practice. And that's one of the things that's maybe a little bit different from other types of music learning, is that the student daily consistent practice is heavily encouraged and even sometimes required. Like with my teacher, he was somewhat strict. My parents had to actually sign a contract saying, I will study every day on my violin. So even weekends. And the reason for that is that if a musician waits even 2 days, especially a young musician, in between practicing, then on that third day, they have to come back and kind of relearn, try to remember what they studied a few days ago first, and then after some time they can go on to new material. And so as you might imagine, this really slows down the learning process, and this is where many musicians, especially young musicians, will become discouraged and actually just quit early on. So really the secret and the key is daily consistent practice. Now, although this isn't maybe the easiest thing to do, the rewards are quite wonderful. So I want to show you a video now of a 4-year-old Suzuki violin player who's been studying for 2.5 months. Only 2.5 months. Let's see what she was able to accomplish. Of the reward of practicing every day. So, of course, as the years go on and the student progresses, the music will become more difficult. And at some point, even in the Suzuki method, it's important to learn sight reading, which is to read the notes on the page, because this is a critical part of being a well-rounded musician. For example, sight read if you want to play in an orchestra, because you're not always going to know the songs that you will be playing, so you have to sight read. So when I was about 10 or 11, I came to a level where my teacher began to teach me how to read music, and I have the ability to read music today. However, I think more valuable than that is my ear, which allows me to play any song that I can sing. So, all right, with that, that's kind of how the Suzuki method works. Let's go on. I would like to share with you now 3 benefits that I have found from studying this Suzuki method. These are development of musical ear, which I already touched on some, development of skill and technique, and lastly, development of character. So, the first benefit is development of musical ear. So some songs, I want to give you guys some examples of songs that I can play because of my ear training. These would include anything that most people already know. So, for example, Happy Birthday is one that you hear over the years many times. And I never had to learn, I never looked at any sheet music of this song. I simply knew how to sing it, and then one day I decided, I think it was my friend's birthday party, and I decided I want to play Happy Birthday for them. So I picked up my violin, and this is kind of how it went. Violin and make a beautiful sound. So, how about another song that most people can't get away from, that all of you will be familiar with, is Disney's recent film, the main song, Let It Go. Raise your hand if you know that song. pick up the violin and play almost anything. Now I do have one more example I want to show you guys today, and that is not only can I play familiar songs, tunes I've heard over and over, but I can also improvise on most things. And it helps to hear it a couple of times beforehand. Since being in Korea for my 10 months, I've heard Taeyong's eyes, nose, lips a handful of times. So today I want to play the video, and I'm going to just do some improvising, and never really know how this is going to go, so let's just see what happens.
미안해 하지마 내가 좋아했지잖아 빨간 예술로 어서 나를 죽이고 가 난 괜찮아 마지막으로 나를 바라봐줘 아무렇지 않은 듯 웃어줘 네가 보고 싶을 때 기억할 수 있게 나의 머릿속에 난 그릴 수 있게 보낼 수 없는 나의 욕심 지정이 된 널 가득고 지금 나 때문에 힘들었니 아무 대답 없는 너 바보처럼 왜 너를 지우지 못해 떠나버렸는데 너의 눈, 코, 입, 날 만지던 네 손이 작은 손까지 여전히 널 느낄 수 있지만 거친 불꽃처럼 찾으러 가버린 우리 사랑 모두 다 너무 아프지만 이제 널 추억이라고 해
Okay, go ahead and stop the video. It's a long song. Okay, so just wanted to give you another example of how studying the Suzuki method develops one's ear to be able to play familiar tunes as well as be able to improvise, which has been very useful. So, all right, moving on to the second benefit of studying this method and that is development of skill technique. So, in the Suzuki method, the pieces, the literature, is almost entirely made up of the classical music genre. And this, I have found, is actually probably the most difficult of the musical genres to learn and to be able to play well, because it includes many different skill techniques that other simpler genres like perhaps folk tunes or something don't require. And I won't go into all of those different techniques today, but the idea is that studying this classical music sets a musician up to be able to play all genres of music. So you've already heard me play some classical examples and some traditional tunes. Now I want to give you a little preview of bluegrass. So bluegrass, fiddle music, all these kinds of music, people love it because it's very energetic, it's very lighthearted, kind of makes you want to get up and dance a little bit. So if you find yourself feeling that way, I mean, I'm not going to judge you when I play this. So, but the piece I'd like to play for you is called the Orange Blossom Special, and it was written to sound like an actual old steam train engine. So I really like this piece. It's really neat. And so let's see what you think. isn't the easiest type of bluegrass that you can play either. So just some examples. Now, how many Michael Jackson fans are there in the audience today? Just like make yourself known for me. Thank you. Okay, Michael Jackson. Good stuff. Okay, I want to give you a little example. The development of skill technique is obviously very valuable as a musician, and one can get that from studying the Suzuki violin method. So, the last benefit I'd like to share with you all today is development of character. When one studies the Suzuki violin method, they can actually develop into really just become a well-rounded person. If you're not a musician, this might seem a little odd to you, but I can tell you from my personal experience, studying any instrument and really giving yourself to that and being consistent in your daily practice, you learn diligence and even enhanced memory skills. This is especially particular to the Suzuki violin method because you're having to memorize all of your music that you're learning rather than simply reading it on the page. That can be helpful for learning new names, studying for tests even. So there's been different studies done on that. I haven't provided any data today for it, but check it out. And then of course, there's the obvious ability to perform in front of someone on stage. Now, because the Suzuki method really, most programs, they have a really nicely structured situation where, like, the program I was a part of was a very good program, and I was required to perform at nursing homes and churches and all over the place. I had to perform at least once per month. It was a requirement for me. And that's just been invaluable. Like, I'm very comfortable coming up and playing in front of any audience. And not only can I play music, but I'm able to come up and speak in front of you relatively comfortably. So just some of the amazing development of character that you can get from studying the Suzuki violin method or studying an instrument in general. And of course there is the gift of sharing music, which is my greatest benefit that I've gained from studying the violin. I love to play for myself, but the practice room is not always the best place. Not usually a place I actually want to be, but coming out and playing for you guys, like even today, it's been so rewarding just to be able to make music and bring a smile to someone's face or even a tear sometimes. It's just amazing. So studying the Suzuki violin method has done that for me. And I just want to quickly review the things that we talked about today. If you study the Suzuki violin method, some of the benefits you will gain are development of musical ear, development of skill technique, and development of character, being able to share the gift of music with others. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. I just want to leave you guys with a closing quote and one final performance before our Q&A time. So, I'm just going to read you that quote. Shinichi Suzuki said, "The ultimate goal of music education, as well as the secret of violin playing, is to guide others away from the world of self-centeredness to that of loving hearts in the service of others. The philosophy of violin playing is the same as that for life. Man, like the violin, can only sing the song of his own heart." So, I hope I've been able to share that with you guys today. And this last piece I want to play is called the Celebration of Praise Medley. It's a song that really is just meaningful to me, and so that's why I chose to play it for you today. Within this piece, it is a medley, so you're going to hear, I think, 3 or 4 different hymns that might be familiar to you. So I just hope that you'll sit back and enjoy this performance.
everyone. I'm Zen. I'm going to be your Q&A host today. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you who have come all the way here today to listen to Eden. Your speech was inspiring, honestly. It was not only your music, but also your words. That doesn't happen a lot. So one more applause for her. During the Q&A section, if you have any more questions, please put them down on one of these papers, and I'll volunteer with collecting it for you. And it will be the best if you don't ask questions directly to Eden. You save it till later. Thank you. All right, here come the first questions. Who is your favorite violinist?
My favorite violinist. There's a lot of really good violinists, a lot of violinists that specialize in different things. Hillary Hahn, she's been an inspiration classically to me, but I really enjoy a guy named David Garrett. Actually, the rendition of Smooth Criminal that I played for you today by Michael Jackson, that was his piece. So his name is David Garrett, and he does a lot of really neat things. So check him out.
Alright, coming on to the next one. So you mentioned the Suzuki method. Does that method transfer to other instruments as well?
In some ways, especially in the area of ear training. As long as I understand how to play an instrument, I could probably make music. I could probably create a song, but it's not going to sound maybe as beautiful as it would if I played on the violin, because I have the muscle memory of the years with the violin. But I've been able to teach myself how to play acoustic guitar. I took a few years of piano lessons, and definitely my learning speed was increased because of my foundation with the Suzuki method and violin playing. So.
When learning a new song, how much do you look at the music or first listening to it?
That depends on what song I'm playing. If the song is a brand new song that I've never heard before, then my first thing is, even if someone hands me the music, I go right to YouTube, find a song recording of it, and listen to that until I know it well enough, like at least the chorus and some things. And that makes it totally way more easy when I go to the sheet music and I try to play the piece. And I would say this is almost maybe a con of the Suzuki violin method, but because of the emphasis of ear training, it's so much to the point that my sight reading skills I have found have been a little bit lacking when I compare with the like a just traditionally trained musician. So there's definitely that con, but I would say a new piece, I'll listen to that first and then go to the sight, to the music if it's a difficult piece, if it's a piece that I'm going to be playing like in an orchestra or something like that. But yeah, I'll listen to that song every day when I first get it till I really can internalize it. And then it just depends on the difficulty of the piece. If it's a classical piece that's relatively difficult, it just depends how much time I put into it. I could potentially learn that song in a few days or a week, but of course it's going to take much longer than that to really perfect the song and make it live inside of me. So.
Alright, here comes another very interesting question. Why did you pick the violin and not the violin?
Why the violin and not the viola? Well, the violin, actually it wasn't my decision because I was only 4 when my parents took me to the music lessons. So what happened was my father, he had some friends who had their son studying Suzuki violin method, and when he was 8 years old, my father's friend's son, he performed a really incredible performance at the local Grand Opera House. And my dad went to that performance, And he saw that and he was inspired and he said, this is what I want my children to do. So I have 3 other siblings and all 4 of us started taking music lessons when we were 4 or 5 years old and have that as a result today.
Now another kind of practical questions. Playing violin might hurt your neck and shoulder area, so how do you deal with that pain?
Yeah, it's true. Over the years, violinists and violists from this position, they often develop tendinitis in their shoulder at some point. And my music instructor, who is awesome, I was with him from the time I was 4 all the way till I graduated from high school. He developed it in his shoulder. And as a result of that, he decided to study and find out preventative things for his students. So I remember maybe halfway into my years of studying with him, he started doing we would do all these stretches before lessons. Like, I remember sometimes spending a half hour stretching. He was teaching me how to stretch. And we didn't even pick up the violin. And it was kind of frustrating at the time, but stretching is very important as a musician. There's many things you can do to loosen up and warm up those muscles. So if you stretch before you're practicing, especially the area, it doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. Do some stretches. It's the same as sports. You want to stretch before you go out and play some badminton so that you don't pull any muscles. So you can do stretching. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah.
Can any adult learn music with a Suzuki method, or does that just work for them?
Yes, I meant to mention that in my speech, actually. Actually, Suzuki himself, you can find quotes, he really strongly believed that children of all ages can learn to play music. And I think that's like his wording, children of all ages. So anybody out there today, if you never had the chance to study music and now you're finding yourself feeling inspired, then you can definitely go out and start. The only drawback you might have is when you're a child, your learning ability is different, and there's like a window of time when I can't fully explain it, but as a child, there's something different about your learning, which will allow you to progress sooner. But if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, you can definitely, at any age, learn to play music.
How do you play violin here in Rome?
How do I play violin? Like where? Okay. My main place that I perform is actually at Wowang Church, Presbyterian Church. That's where I attend on Sunday mornings, and I just play with the worship team there. That is my main performance. I have gone out only one time so far, but I like to street perform sometimes. It's not such a big thing. Oh, yeah, I'm seeing it more and more. People call it busking, going out into the street and just playing. I did that one day because it had been on my bucket list to go into a big city or a city and just go on the street corner and start playing just to see what happened. And I finally did that last year, or earlier this year. We had a warm day, and it was awesome. Like, I really want to do that again sometime. So, but street performances at church, and then just getting together with friends and having jam sessions. Any opportunity, though, I always take it to perform. So I love it.
Have you met other players who didn't use the Suzuki method?
Yes, I have met many, especially through, mainly through like my orchestra experiences. When I was in university, I was a part of my university orchestra, and we meet musicians from all sorts of different backgrounds. And yeah, and sometimes I find myself comparing, especially in an orchestra setting, because you really need to be a strong sight reader. It's very important for reading in an orchestra. So I found myself feeling in the beginning stages when I first set that music in front of me, just a little bit like almost inferior, even though I've been playing for 20 years. And I don't like that feeling, but after I've given the music some time, then I feel more comfortable, and by the performance time, I'm ready to go. So,
Business comes from a very ambitious parent. When is the best age to learn the violin or to be the best in the world? The earlier the better.
yeah. Well, I think 3 is probably I've seen them as young as 2, starting 2 years old. And there's nothing wrong with getting the child set up, playing music to them, taking them to performances to kind of set the stage and inspire them. There's not a lot they're going to accomplish at 2 and 3. I started when I was 4, and I really think that was very effective. But as a parent, I fully say yes. When you have your child play music, growing up, there was always classical music on in the house. In fact, in my childhood, I was only allowed to listen to classical music and like church music. So actually, that was kind of sad. But I did really develop kind of a love and a respect for classical music. So that's something you can do right out of the womb. Just be playing that music to the children, take them to concerts, and then, each child is a little different too. It depends on, just watch your child and how quickly are they learning. I think like when they're starting like preschool and they're starting to learn like things in an academic setting, that's probably the earliest time you really want to seriously start taking them to music lessons and things like that. So.
That's good. That was the last question for Edith. If you have any more, please come up to her afterwards. One more thing.
And now, Dr. Shinjang will give you some more details for questions.
Wonderful sharing of your experience with all of us. In fact, I was not lucky as you are because I was not given any formal instruction, but I plan to teach myself. When I was in primary school, I created a paper keyboard and I memorized some songs. It was the beginning of my music education. And in church, I began to read the score, like a soprano part, echo part, tenor part, and then bass part as well. So it was the more advanced lesson from one of my teachers in church, Sunday school. Then I began to play the 4 part of organ. So I do not play others, but I play only 4 parts because that's what I play all the time. So, and it was beginning the second step of my music education, almost self-taught. Then I began to sing quartet together. So it was quite enjoyable. That's how I ended up marrying a musician. So, but I believe myself that I was saved by 3 different things, and then one of them was music when I was in turbulent age in rural town. So your experience was more fortunate, and then privileged, enriched as well. So before I give this letter of appreciation, one more favor request for you. Are you willing to play at next May concert at GIC? That's wonderful. Promise in public. Every May we have a concert. So that in fact my wife sitting over there, she was quite impressed by your nice performance. And then one more. How about having Suzuki class every Saturday here?
Who wants to come?
I think they that is another proposal. Before giving this, I want to give another letter of appreciation physically with my wife. Why don't you come to the front? She's embarrassed, but Eden said she likes to share her music. In fact, I did not think about that way, but when you talk about sharing, in fact, we sing together quite frequently. So I will sing a duet to you. I did not give the warning in advance. With that warning in advance, she would not come. So I did not tell her. We sang different pieces. But one of the favorite songs is Our Encounter in Korean Manam. It was popular music in 1990s, but we were exposed to that song early 2000. So it was composed for choir music, but we chose only two, melody and the top. I sang the top. Our encounter destiny. Since we are together, we cannot separate anymore. We have to stay together forever. That's the conclusion. In fact, I read the article, Reader's Digest article when I was in college. The article said there are three ways for the people to stay younger. One of them is learning new instrument. So why don't you join Eden to learn Suzuki violin? Level of appreciation to Eden Jones. We'd like to thank you for your outstanding support to the citizens here as a guest speaker at Jazz Talk on music without notes. Not only talk, but performance. Thank you very much.
Before you leave, I would like to make some announcements. First, there will be no GIC talks for next 3 Saturdays. Our next GIC talk will be on August 22nd. In the meantime, enjoy the break and have fun in the sun. Second, join the next GIC coordinator has a short announcement.
Thanks so much for coming in, and did you enjoy the talk? I do want to recognize one of our volunteers has been with us for a couple of months now, and that's Rinpo. Rinpo's last GIC talk is today. He has the next chapter that he's entering into, and I just wanted to say thank you publicly and for us to acknowledge him as well.
First, the GIC club will be at meeting at 4:30. If you want to join, please go upstairs after this talk. The meeting is open to everyone. Fourth, if you didn't have the chance to write down any questions on your paper, please put this paper back near the entrance. Let's take the cards together. Our last announcement is we would like to invite you to take a few photos with Ethan, today's GIC talk speaker. Thank you for spending your time with us at the GIC. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again on August 22nd for the next GIC talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We invite you to come to the front and take a quick picture with Eden.